They thought if they cut you off, ignored you, buried your name in silence, it would be enough to kill your momentum. That you'd vanish in the shadows where they left you forgotten, irrelevant, broken. But what they didn't understand is that silence never suffocated you. It sharpened you. While they were laughing in rooms you weren't invited to, you were building fire with your bare hands. No applause. No spotlight, just raw willpower and a reason to return louder than thunder. You didn't need noise to grow, you needed the absence of it. No distractions, no masks, just truth. And the truth, it made you dangerous. You learned to move without validation. You trained without eyes watching. You rebuilt every piece of yourself in the dark so that when you rose, you wouldn't be recognized, you'd be feared. You didn't come back to prove your worth. You came back to remind the world what happens when silence is given to the wrong soul. Now they flinch when you speak, because your voice doesn't tremble anymore, it commands. It echoes. It drips with everything they tried to erase. They wanted you quiet, so you became a symphony of scars and survival. Every word you say now carries weight. Not because you scream, but because you've been silent long enough to know how to make every syllable land like prophecy. You don't shout to be heard. You speak once, and the world listens. They buried you thinking you were done. But you weren't done, you were transforming. They thought they were walking away from ashes. What they left was the beginning of a storm. And when you came back, you didn't knock. You tore the sky open. You weren't just louder. You were unignorable. And now you don't chase rooms. You are the room, the storm, the sound, the signal that says, silence didn't kill me. It rebirthed me. They never expected the silence to forge something divine. They thought stillness meant surrender. But you weren't resting, you were rising in secret. Every quiet day was a forge. Every ignored message was weight added to your spine. While they were busy underestimating, you were becoming something holy in the aftermath. And when you returned, you didn't just speak, you rang through their bones like a sermon they couldn't unhear. Not noise. Not chaos. Just truth with teeth. They don't know what to do with you now. You're too loud for their comfort, too real for their games, too certain to be silenced again. They whisper about you in circles now, terrified of the power they tried to destroy. But the joke, it's cosmic, because every time they tried to erase you, they accidentally etched you deeper into the foundation. Every attempt to mute you just made your name echo longer. You didn't come back to participate. You came back to dominate the frequency. You're not bitter. You're not vengeful. You're elevated. And that's what rattles them most. You didn't crawl back, you ascended. You stand taller not out of pride, but because you earned it in silence, with no audience and no applause. And now you speak with the weight of someone who doesn't need to be liked, only heard. You were buried in quiet, but you bloomed in rage, grace, and holy clarity. And now every time you walk into a room, the air shifts. The ground remembers. The silence gets nervous. Because you don't talk just to fill the void, you talk to wake the dead. And the ones who buried you, they'll spend the rest of their lives hearing your voice in the quiet they once used against you. You didn't just come back louder than God. You came back as a reminder that the silence was never their victory. It was always your weapon. They thought silence was your ending. What they didn't realize was that silence was your ritual. Your initiation into something they've never faced before. Someone who doesn't just return, but resurrects. You didn't come back needing their words. You came back speaking in power, in presence, in prophecy. The kind that rattles fragile egos and shakes every fake connection off like dead weight. You're not here to be embraced, you're here to be felt, to be remembered, to be the echo in their ears long after the lights go out. They made the mistake of thinking silence meant defeat, not realizing some souls only catch fire in isolation. You burned, yes, but you burned clean. You walked through that quiet like a funeral and came out wearing a crown made of everything that tried to bury you. And now, you wear your pain like a language, a dialect only the powerful can understand. You don't ask for understanding anymore, you demand space just by existing. Let them pretend they don't hear you. Let them keep avoiding your name. The truth is, they can't drown out what's already inside of them, the echo of you. The sound of everything they tried to silence now pounding through their guilt and insecurity like a war drum. You're not noise. You're not even just a voice. You're a reckoning. And every time you speak, something inside them shatters. Because you weren't buried. You were planted. And this version of you, the one they can't dismiss, can't define, can't destroy, this is the consequence. You came back louder than God, not because you wanted attention, but because they needed a reminder. That real power doesn't scream to be heard. It returns in silence, and then speaks once, and the world is never the same again. Now they walk on eggshells around your name, hoping the ground doesn't remember how it trembled when you rose. Because you didn't just survive what they did, you transcended it. And that makes you dangerous. Not loud dangerous. Unshakable dangerous. The kind that doesn't need to prove anything, because the proof is already written in every scar, every silence. Every time you were counted out and still showed up 10 levels higher. You don't haunt them with threats. You haunt them with evidence. Your presence is a mirror now, and they hate what they see. Not because you did anything to them, but because you didn't stay broken. You didn't stay hidden. You became what they fear the most, a witness with power. Someone who remembers the betrayal, who felt the weight of silence and still came back with clarity, not chaos. You didn't return to scream. You returned to speak with precision, with the kind of tone that slices through fake smiles and manufactured peace like a blade. You don't even need to raise your voice. You are the voice, the walking consequence. The pulse that makes the air heavier when you walk in. You don't demand respect, you redefine what it looks like. You don't react, you respond like prophecy. And the ones who tried to destroy you, they feel it now. Every achievement you make echoes like a verdict. Every breath you take in power is a sentence passed on the ones who swore you'd never rise again. You didn't come back for revenge. You came back so full of truth the lie couldn't breathe in your presence. You didn't come back just to heal. You came back to own every room they tried to exile you from. And now the silence, it works for you. It clears the path. It builds the tension. Because when you speak now, it's not just heard. It's felt in the bones. You were buried in silence. You returned as the voice that silence will never swallow again. They watch you now with that nervous reverence reserved for storms that shift the sky because they know deep down they created this. They sculpted your silence with ridicule, carved your isolation with doubt, and watered your roots with mockery. And when nothing bloomed right away, they walked away, laughing, never realizing they weren't witnessing your end, but the birth of a force. You didn't just come back, you emerged, evolved, unfolded with intention. While they were still busy talking, you were becoming too undeniable to ignore. You speak now, not with the desperation of someone seeking to be heard, but with the weight of someone who knows they were meant to be listened to. Your voice doesn't fill space, it commands it. You don't shout to overpower the noise. You pause and the room leans in. And the most poetic part, you don't carry rage, you carry memory. You remember the silence, the ghosting, the fake love, the underhanded compliments and the venom behind the smiles. You remember how they loved you when you were easy to overlook and how quickly they vanished the moment you started becoming. You hold no bitterness, only a ledger. And every win you collect now, every door you open with nothing but presence, every time you succeed without bending, you clear the debt with interest. You're not louder to be louder. You're louder because the truth grew teeth. Because your silence didn't make you softer, it made you surgical. And now every word is calculated, every move exact, every breath a disruption. They buried you in quiet. Now you walk like a resurrection, and every step says, I don't need revenge. I am the response. They made the mistake of thinking your silence was surrender. It wasn't. It was the sound of power charging. And now that it's been unleashed, there's no going back. You're not just louder than God. You became the force that makes the heavens listen. Like, comment, and subscribe.